As we finish up this summer, I want to just bring our whole kind of series to a close. For the 7 weeks of our Summer Beloved and Fearless series, as we've been working through 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, we've been asking ourselves these questions. These are the marks of an authentic Christian, a real Christian, a true faith that we see in John's letters to the churches back in the 1st century. And if you're kind of at the point where you're like, man, I talked about how the groupings are. The first 2 were kind of doctrinal things that we know. The second 2 were more devotional in nature, things that we value, attitudes that we hold, things that we love. The last 3 have been more about the disciplines of being a Christian and the way that we live in the midst of the world. But I just kind of want to break it down for you. If you're like, okay, I need to focus on this a little bit. I want to grow my faith this fall. If you're somewhere in between, questions 1 and 2, and you want to know God and the gospel, I encourage you, just stick around City Coast. We talk about God and the gospel every single week. If you want to get to know the God we worship and the gospel story that we believe, stick around. Stick around on Sundays. It's going to be a super fun fall. I just said we're going to study Revelation together in the coming weeks and months. And I promise you, it'll be a moving time. It will be an empowering time. Stick around. If you've got some questions about God and the gospel, maybe you want to expand all the way from questions 1 to question 4. I encourage you, the next time we have a Rooted experience, step into Rooted with us. Get to know what we believe. Get to know what we value. Check out our next Rooted experience that's going to happen later in the fall. If you're wondering about the doctrine and devotion, what does this church believe and what do they really care about? We encourage you to get rooted in Christ with City Coast. If you're sitting somewhere between questions 3 and 7, the devotion and kind of disciplines of all of this, and you're like, I promise you next weekend is going to be powerful. I got a friend coming into town next weekend who's going to talk about the personal missions that each of us are called and designed by God to live into. Next weekend is the beginning of this kind of on-the-move focus that we have for the fall. We believe that City Coast is on the move. If you're familiar, that phrase may resonate a little bit with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. If you're familiar with C.S. Lewis and the Chronicles of Narnia. The first time the Pevensey kids break through the wardrobe into the land of Narnia, it's frozen. Everything is covered in snow and ice, and there's a darkness throughout the land. And the Pevenseys come across a beaver family who are part of an insurgence, a revolution that's happening, a revolution of hope and joy and love. And they start migrating away from the darkness, away from the enemy, away from the power that dominates Narnia at the time. They start moving toward a new power, a power that they believe is going to restore and save the land of Narnia. And the beaver tells the kids, and there's this little mantra that floats between all the different people that are a part of this revolution. He says, Aslan, the Christ figure of the story, Aslan is on the move. Aslan is on the move. And the beaver family, their allies, and the Pevensey kids are joining the movement. What was spring in Narnia is kind of like the fall around City Coast. God is on the move. And he wants to invite you into that personally. That's what this permission stuff is all about. He wants to personally invite you to move with him, to cooperate with him, and to conquer this life that you've been gifted. It's true of us collectively. We are on the move. We are going to study what it looks like to be a kingdom people in the midst of an empire. It's no joke. This is election season, right? Lots of things going on. But we're a kingdom people. We know the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And while we're called to engage the world in which we're in, we are not of the world in which we're in. We're playing a bigger game. Collectively, we are on the move this fall. And then just as a note, geographically, we're also moving. We're moving from here in a couple weeks over to the Scandinavian Club. It's going to be a fresh environment, fresh atmosphere, a fresh space for us to take the next step as a faith community. God is on the move, and so is City Coast this fall. But God's looking for real Christians to move with him, not posers or imposters.